August 14th, 1867, New Bern, North Carolina, 2 in the morning. A wooden house sits dark beside the News River. Report back in 2 weeks. His hand rests on the Bible. He reads Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. It portrays Lincoln as the great emancipator, while black people stand around as props. Frederick Douglass appears for 30 seconds. The thousands of black activists, soldiers, and politicians who actually won freedom invisible. Abraham Galloway, 0 major films or documentaries until the 2010s. Compare that to dozens of films about white Civil War figures. George Custer, who lost every major battle he fought, got more movies than Abraham Galloway, who helped win the war. That's not accidental. That's propaganda. They tell stories that reinforce white supremacy and bury stories that challenge it. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. Then he closes the book and stands. Brothers, we are Moses' people crossing the Red Sea. Tonight we become the Union's eyes and ears. Tomorrow we become free soldiers. The men nod. They know the risk. Captured spies get hanged. Their families get sold deeper south. But they also know something else. Freedom doesn't come from waiting. It comes from fighting. What Abraham Galloway orchestrated in that room would recruit 10,000 black soldiers. It would turn the tide of the Civil War in North Carolina. It would change American history. Then they erased him. For 150 years. Until now. You were never taught this name in school. Abraham Galloway. You never saw him in a textbook. Never heard about him in a documentary. They made sure of it. Inside, 12 black men huddle around a single candle. The flame throws shadows across their faces. Because if you knew his story, you would understand something they desperately need to hide. Your ancestors didn't wait for white saviors. They saved themselves. They organized. They fought. They won. And the system spent a century and a half burying that truth. By the end of this video, you will know 3 truths that shatter everything your history teacher told you. First, Abraham Galloway wasn't rescued by abolitionists. He escaped slavery, crossed enemy lines, became a spy master, and built the largest black intelligence network in American history. Second, he didn't just gather information. He recruited 10,000 black men into the Union Army, men who fought and died and won battles that your textbooks credit to white generals. Third, after Reconstruction ended, Southern governments systematically erased him from every record, every history book, every monument. They called him troublemaker, agitator, dangerous. Why? Because he proved black men could lead, strategize, and win wars without white permission. This isn't ancient history. Your great-great-grandfather might have been recruited by Galloway. Your family's freedom might have been won by his spy network. This is your stolen inheritance. This is the truth they murdered to hide. After this video, you'll understand why black political leadership was crushed after Reconstruction. Why monuments only honor white generals. Why your schools never taught you that a black man orchestrated Union victory in North Carolina. You'll never see the Civil War the same way. You'll never accept their lies again. Let me take you back to where it started. 1837, Smithville, North Carolina. That's Southport today. A baby boy is born in a slave cabin. His mother's name is Hester Hankins. She's a slave. His father's name is John Wesley Galloway. He's the white man who owns Hester. You understand what that means. Rape. The child born from that violence is named Abraham. And by law, by the twisted logic of slavery, Abraham is property. He belongs to his own father. Hester raises Abraham in that cabin. She works the fields during the day. At night, she tells him stories from the Bible. Moses leading people out of Egypt. Joshua bringing down the walls of Jericho. David killing Goliath with a stone. She tells him these stories for a reason. God delivers his people. But God doesn't deliver them by making them wait quietly. He delivers them by making them fight. Abraham grows up watching his mother get beaten. He watches his siblings sold away when the master needs cash. He watches other slaves dragged behind horses for trying to run. By the time he's 15 years old, he understands something fundamental. This system will not end by being patient. This system will only end when people like him rise up and destroy it. But Abraham is smart. He knows running blindly gets you caught and killed. So he learns. There's a free black blacksmith in town. The man teaches Abraham to read and write in secret. If they get caught, both of them hang. But they don't get caught. Abraham learns fast. He reads everything he can find: newspapers, books, the Bible. He memorizes scripture passages about liberation. Let my people go. The Lord is a warrior. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. By 1857, Abraham is 20 years old. His master hires him out to work as a bricklayer in Wilmington. Abraham works construction during the day. At night, he plans his escape. He makes friends with free black sailors. He learns the shipping schedules. He studies which captains might look the other way for the right price. And he waits for the perfect moment. July 4th, 1857. Independence Day. White people celebrate their freedom with parades and speeches. Abraham sees the bitter irony. That night he makes his move. A ship called the Northern Star sits in Wilmington Harbor. It's bound for Philadelphia in the morning. Abraham approaches the captain. The man's name is Samuel Morrison. Morrison is white, but he's also Quaker. Quakers oppose slavery. Abraham explains his situation. Morrison looks at him for a long moment, then he nods. Be at the dock at 4 in the morning. Bring nothing. Abraham doesn't sleep that night. At 3:30 he walks to the harbor. His heart pounds so hard he thinks it might break through his chest. If patrollers catch him, they'll whip him half to death and sell him to the Deep South. Mississippi, Alabama. Places where slaves die faster than masters can buy new ones. But Abraham doesn't get caught. He reaches the ship. Morrison is waiting. Get in that cargo crate. Don't make a sound until I tell you. On the table between them, a Bible lies open to Exodus. Next to it, a hand-drawn map of Confederate positions spreads across rough paper. Abraham climbs into a wooden crate, barely big enough for his body. Morrison nails the lid shut. For the next 3 days, Abraham stays in that crate. The ship rocks on ocean waves. He can't stand up, can't stretch, can barely breathe. The air inside gets so hot and stale, he thinks he might suffocate. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. His mouth is so dry his tongue sticks to his teeth. But he doesn't make a sound. Because sound means death. On the 3rd day, he hears footsteps. The lid pries open. Light floods in. Morrison's face appears. You're in Philadelphia. You're free. Abraham climbs out of that crate. His legs barely hold him up, but he's standing on free soil for the first time in his life. He's 20 years old, and everything changes from this moment. Abraham could have stayed in Philadelphia, could have built a quiet life as a free black man up north, found a job, started a family, lived safely. But Abraham doesn't choose safety. He thinks about his mother still enslaved back in North Carolina, his siblings still in chains, thousands of other black people still suffering under the whip, and he makes a decision that will define everything. He's going back, not as a slave, as a liberator. Abraham connects with the Underground Railroad. He meets William Still, one of the most important conductors in the network. Still keeps detailed records of every escaped slave he helps. Years later, those records will become a book called The Underground Railroad. In that book, Still writes about Abraham Galloway. He describes him as one of the most fearless men I ever met. Abraham doesn't just want to escape. He wants to destroy the entire system. For the next 3 years, Abraham works with the Underground Railroad. He makes multiple trips back into slave states: North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina. Each trip risks his life. If they catch him, they'll hang him as an example. But they don't catch him. Abraham is too smart, too careful, too determined. He guides dozens of enslaved people to freedom. He learns every back road, every safe house, every sympathetic face between the South and the North. But Abraham sees something that troubles him. The Underground Railroad saves people one at a time, family by family. It's heroic work, but it's not enough. At this rate, it would take centuries to free 4 million enslaved people. Abraham starts thinking bigger. What if we didn't just help slaves escape? What if we armed them? What if we trained them to fight? What if we turned 4 million slaves into 4 million soldiers? Then 1861 arrives. South Carolina fires on Fort Sumter. The Civil War begins. Abraham sees his opportunity. The Union needs to win this war. The South's biggest advantage is slave labor. Slaves grow the food, build the fortifications, do all the work that keeps Confederate soldiers supplied and fed. But what if those slaves became spies for the Union? What if they sabotaged Southern war efforts from the inside? What if they fed intelligence to Union commanders? Abraham travels to Fort Monroe in Virginia. That's where Union General Benjamin Butler has set up headquarters. Butler has a problem. He controls the fort, but he doesn't know what Confederate forces surround him. He doesn't know their numbers, their positions, their supply lines. He's fighting blind. Abraham walks into Butler's office and makes an offer. I know every plantation in North Carolina. I know every river, every road, every Confederate position. I can get you intelligence, better than any white spy ever could, because enslaved people hear everything, and they'll tell me everything. Butler looks at this young black man standing in his office. Butler is many things, but he's not stupid. He understands the value of what Abraham offers. You're hired. Become my eyes and ears behind enemy lines. Abraham Galloway just became the Union's first official black spy. Over the next year, Abraham does something remarkable. He doesn't just gather intelligence himself. He builds a network. He recruits enslaved people across North Carolina to become spies. House slaves who serve meals to Confederate officers and hear their plans. Field workers who watch troop movements. Washerwomen who collect uniforms and count regiments. Cooks who poison food supplies. Blacksmiths who sabotage horseshoes and weapons. Abraham turns slavery's greatest weakness into the Confederacy's greatest vulnerability. The people you treat as invisible are watching everything. The network operates in cells. Each spy only knows 2 or 3 others. If one person gets caught and tortured, they can't give up the whole operation. Messages move through coded songs. Spirituals that sound like religious music but contain military intelligence. Swing low, sweet chariot means Confederate troops moving north. Wade in the water means change your route. Patrols are watching. Go down. Moses means escape attempt. Tonight be ready to help. Dead drops hide information in hollow trees, under church pews, in cemetery flower arrangements. Couriers are mostly women, because Confederate soldiers pay less attention to black women moving between plantations. The whole system is brilliant, dangerous, and absolutely effective. Abraham's network provides Union commanders with intelligence so accurate they start winning battles they should have lost. Abraham Galloway sits at the head of that table. His voice comes low and steady. February 1862. Union forces prepare to attack Roanoke Island. It's a Confederate stronghold. Taking it would give the Union control of North Carolina's coast. But the Confederates have the island heavily fortified. Union General Ambrose Burnside knows a frontal assault will cost hundreds of lives. He needs another way in. Abraham provides it. There's a path through the swamps, he tells Burnside. The Confederates don't guard it because they think nobody can cross it. But enslaved people use it all the time. I'll guide your troops through. Burnside trusts him. On the night before the attack, Abraham leads Union soldiers through swamps the Confederates considered impassable. The men wade through water up to their chests. Snakes swim past them in the darkness. One wrong step means drowning in quicksand. But Abraham knows every inch of this terrain. He's crossed it a dozen times, helping people escape. He brings the troops to high ground behind Confederate lines. The next morning, Union forces attack from two directions. The Confederates never saw it coming. Roanoke Island falls. Burnside writes in his report, Galloway's intelligence was invaluable. That victory opens the North Carolina coast to Union control. But Abraham isn't finished. Now he has a new mission. The Emancipation Proclamation is coming. Lincoln is about to declare enslaved people in rebel states legally free. More importantly, Lincoln is about to authorize black men to join the Union Army as soldiers. Abraham sees his life's purpose crystallizing. He will recruit an army. January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation takes effect. Technically enslaved people in Confederate territory are now free. Practically, they're still enslaved until Union forces show up to enforce it. But the proclamation does something else. It authorizes the recruitment of black soldiers. The Union needs manpower desperately. Casualties are staggering. White volunteers are running out. Black men represent an untapped source of hundreds of thousands of potential soldiers. But there's a problem. Most black men in the South are still enslaved, trapped behind Confederate lines. Someone needs to go get them. Abraham volunteers. Send me back to North Carolina. I'll bring you soldiers. Union commanders give him authorization. Abraham begins moving through Confederate territory, appearing at plantations in the dead of night. He meets with enslaved men in secret. His message is simple but powerful. Brothers Lincoln signed a paper declaring you free. But paper doesn't make you free. Only blood makes you free. Join the Union Army. Pick up a rifle. Fight for your freedom. Fight for your family's freedom. Prove to the world that black men are warriors. The response overwhelms even Abraham's expectations. Men don't just volunteer, they flood to enlist. Hundreds in the first month. Thousands by the end of the year. They leave plantations in groups, families, entire communities. They walk through Confederate territory at night, guided by Abraham's network of spies, who show them safe routes. Confederate patrols try to stop them, but can't. The fugitives move too fast, know the land too well, and are too determined. By the end of 1863, Abraham Galloway has recruited nearly 5,000 black soldiers. By the end of the war, that number reaches 10,000. These men form the core of the African Brigade, all black units that fight in some of the war's bloodiest battles. They fight at Fort Wagner, where the 54th Massachusetts earns legendary status, charging an impregnable fortress. They fight at Fort Fisher, the largest combined land and sea battle of the entire war. They fight at Petersburg in the trenches that finally break the Confederate Army. And they fight harder than almost any white units because they know what's at stake. If the South wins, they go back to slavery. If the Union wins, they're free. That motivation makes them ferocious soldiers. White Union officers who initially doubted black men's courage learn quickly. After the Battle of Fort Wagner, one officer writes, "I have never seen braver men. They charged the fort knowing most would die. They charged anyway." The mortality rate for black soldiers in the Civil War exceeds 40%. They die at higher rates than white soldiers because Confederates refuse to take black prisoners. If you're captured as a black Union soldier, they execute you on the spot. Or worse, they sell you back into slavery. So black soldiers fight to the death. Surrender is not an option. Abraham doesn't just recruit these men and send them off. He fights alongside them. He joins battles as a scout and intelligence officer. At Fort Fisher, he guides troops through the fort's defenses, pointing out weak points his spy network identified. When the fort falls, it's the beginning of the end for the Confederacy. Wilmington, the last major Confederate port, falls soon after. Sherman's march to the sea becomes possible because Abraham's intelligence showed Sherman which routes to take. The Confederacy collapses, and Abraham Galloway played a larger role in that collapse than almost any history book will tell you. April 9, 1865. Robert E. Lee surrenders at Appomattox. The war is over. The Union won. 4 million enslaved people are legally free. Abraham Galloway is 28 years old. He helped free his people. Outside, dogs bark in the distance. A Confederate patrol passes on the road. The men freeze. Wait, he recruited 10,000 soldiers. He provided intelligence that won battles and saved lives. He risked his life hundreds of times. He succeeded beyond what any reasonable person could have imagined. Now he faces a new question. What happens next? Abraham knows the answer. The war freed black people, but it didn't give them equality. It didn't give them land. It didn't give them the vote. It didn't give them political power. Southern whites are already plotting how to restore white supremacy the moment Union troops leave. Abraham sees Reconstruction as the Second War. The First War freed black people from slavery. The Second War must secure their freedom permanently. That means political organization. That means demanding rights. That means building black economic and political power. Abraham becomes an organizer. He travels across North Carolina speaking at churches and town halls. He tells black men, "We won the war with rifles. Now we win the peace with votes. Register to vote. Run for office. Demand representation. Don't wait for white people to give you rights. Take them." His speeches draw hundreds, sometimes thousands. He becomes one of the most influential black leaders in North Carolina. White supremacists notice. They don't like what they see. 1865. North Carolina holds a freedmen's convention to discuss black civil rights. Abraham is elected as a delegate. He walks into a room full of white legislators who oppose giving black men any rights at all. They want black people to remain subordinate, working for white landowners, staying out of politics. Abraham stands before them and delivers a speech that shocks the room. "We fought for this country. We died for this country. We won this war. Now you will give us the vote. Not because you want to, because you have no choice. We are armed, we are organized, and we will not be denied." Some legislators gasp, others shout threats. Abraham doesn't back down. That afternoon, he organizes black veterans to march to the state capitol. They carry rifles openly. The message is clear. We can fight another war if necessary. The legislators cave partially. They grant limited voting rights to black men. It's not full equality, but it's a start. And it only happened because Abraham forced it to happen. 1868. Abraham runs for North Carolina State Senate. He campaigns across black communities. His message emphasizes self-reliance and political power. We cannot depend on white Republicans or white Democrats. We must build our own political base. Elect black representatives. Pass laws that protect black people. Redistribute land from Confederate traitors to freed people. Create public schools so our children can read and write. Abraham wins his Senate race. He becomes one of the first black men elected to the North Carolina legislature. In the Senate, Abraham fights for everything he promised: public education for black children, protection from white terrorism, economic opportunity. He introduces bills for land redistribution, give freed people the 40 acres they were promised, take land from Confederate generals who waged war against America and give it to black families. The bills fail. White legislators vote them down. But Abraham keeps fighting. He gives speeches on the Senate floor that make white supremacists furious. He exposes their crimes. He demands accountability. He refuses to be silenced. Outside the Senate, Abraham organizes politically. He builds the Union League, a Republican organization focused on black political power. They register black voters. They educate people about their rights. They protect polling places from white intimidation. In some counties, black voter turnout reaches 80%. That terrifies white supremacists. If black people vote in large numbers, they can elect black representatives. They can change laws. They can redistribute wealth. White supremacists cannot allow that. The Ku Klux Klan targets Abraham. They send death threats. They burn crosses outside his house. They threaten to lynch him if he doesn't stop organizing. Abraham responds by arming himself and his supporters. He tells his wife, Martha Ann Dixon, "If they come for me, I'm taking some of them with me." He keeps organizing. He keeps speaking. He keeps fighting. Nothing stops him. September 1870. Abraham is 33 years old. He's at the height of his power and influence. He's a state senator, a community leader, and one of the most important black political figures in the South. Then suddenly, he gets sick. The illness comes fast: high fever, vomiting, severe pain. Within days, he's dead. The official cause of death is yellow fever. But there's a problem with that explanation. There's no yellow fever epidemic at that time. Nobody else in the area has yellow fever. Only Abraham gets sick. Only Abraham dies. Many people believe he was poisoned. The Klan had threatened him repeatedly. White supremacists wanted him dead. Poison was their favorite method for killing black leaders they couldn't lynch publicly. Abraham's symptoms match arsenic poisoning, but no autopsy is performed. No investigation happens. He's buried quickly. The truth dies with him. Was Abraham Galloway murdered? We'll never know for certain. But given what happened next, it seems likely. Because the systematic erasure of Abraham Galloway begins immediately after his death. The footsteps fade. Galloway looks each man in the eye. These are not slaves anymore. Within months of Abraham's death, something strange starts happening. His name begins disappearing from records. Newspapers that praised him during the war now barely mention his passing. His Senate speeches, which were recorded in official legislative journals, start getting edited in later editions. References to his organizing work get removed. His role in recruiting 10,000 soldiers gets downplayed or attributed to white officers. His spy network gets erased entirely from military histories. This isn't accidental. This is systematic. When Reconstruction ends in 1877, Democrats take control of North Carolina's government. These are the same white supremacists Abraham fought against. They immediately begin what they call redemption. That's their word, not mine. Redemption. They're redeeming the South from black political power, and part of that redemption involves rewriting history. They can't have black children growing up knowing that a man like Abraham Galloway existed. Can't have them knowing that a former slave became a spy master, recruited armies, won battles, and served in the Senate. Because if black children know that they might think they can do it too, they might think they deserve political power, they might demand equality, White supremacists can't allow that, so they erase Abraham from the story. But Abraham wasn't the only one they erased. Let me show you the pattern, because once you see it, you'll understand this wasn't isolated. This was policy. Every time a black person led organized fought and won, they erased them. Every single time. Let me give you 4 more examples, and watch how the same pattern repeats. Robert Smalls, Charleston, South Carolina, 1862. Robert is enslaved working as a pilot on a Confederate warship called the USS Planter. He's forced to steer this ship for Confederate officers, but Robert has a plan. On the night of May 13th, he waits until the white officers go ashore to sleep in town. Then he does something audacious. He takes control of the ship. He sails it out of Charleston Harbor with his family and 15 other enslaved people aboard. But here's the dangerous part. To escape, Robert has to sail past 5 Confederate forts. Each fort has cannons aimed at the harbor. If they suspect anything, they'll blow the Planter out of the water. Robert knows the Confederate signals. He wears the captain's hat. He mimics the captain's mannerisms. He gives the correct whistle signals as he passes each fort. The Confederate soldiers see a ship leaving harbor at night, assume it's on official business, and let it pass. By dawn, Robert Smalls sails into Union territory and surrenders the ship. He just delivered a Confederate warship worth $100,000 to the Union Navy. But the value isn't just the ship. Robert provides intelligence that changes the war. He knows every Confederate fort's position, every harbor defense, every weak point. He draws maps from memory. His information helps Union forces capture Charleston Harbor, one of the most important Confederate ports. After that, Robert becomes a pilot for the Union Navy. He guides ships through dangerous waters for the rest of the war. He's a hero. Everyone knows his name. During the war. After the war, Robert doesn't stop. He gets involved in politics. He helps write South Carolina's Reconstruction Constitution. He gets elected to the United States House of Representatives. He serves 5 terms from 1875 to 1887. In Congress, he fights for black education, voting rights, and civil rights protections. He's one of the most important black politicians in American history. During his lifetime, then comes the erasure. After Reconstruction ends South Carolina's white supremacist government, systematically removes Robert Smalls from textbooks. They don't want black children knowing that an enslaved man stole a Confederate warship and became a congressman. That story is too empowering, so they bury it. For over 100 years, most Americans never heard of Robert Smalls. It's not until the 1990s that historians start recovering his story. Even now, most high school students graduate without learning his name. Meanwhile, Confederate generals who lost the war have 1,700 monuments across America. Robert Smalls, who helped win the war and served in Congress, he got his first major statue in 2023. 161 years after his famous escape, you see the pattern starting. Let me show you another one. Martin Delany, born free in Virginia, 1812, becomes a physician, abolitionist, and writer. When the Civil War starts, Martin pushes for black men to be allowed to fight. Lincoln finally agrees. Martin becomes a recruiting officer. He travels through southern states recruiting black soldiers, just like Abraham Galloway. He recruits 6,000 men. He serves as an intelligence officer. He meets with Lincoln personally to advise on Reconstruction policy. In February 1865, Lincoln promotes Martin Delany to major in the Union Army. That makes him the first black field officer in United States military history. Not just a soldier, an officer, commanding troops, making strategic decisions. Martin serves in South Carolina, helping organize freed people during the final months of the war. After the war, he works as a trial judge in the Freedmen's Bureau. He fights for black land ownership. He writes books about black self-determination and African heritage. He's a giant in black intellectual and political history. Some escaped last month, others last week. One man still has whip marks healing on his back. Then the erasure happens. The army loses his commission records. Convenient, right? His military achievements get downplayed or attributed to white officers in later histories. West Point doesn't mention him in their history for over 100 years. His books go out of print for decades. By the mid-20th century, most Americans, including most black Americans, have never heard of Major Martin Delany, the first black field officer in U.S. history, and they erased him so thoroughly that even his name disappeared. Here's a third example, and this one will shock you. Mary Elizabeth Bowser, Richmond, Virginia, 1863 to 1865. Mary was born enslaved, but was freed before the war. When the war starts, she volunteers to spy for the Union, but not just any spying. She gets placed as a servant in the Confederate White House. She works directly for Jefferson Davis's wife, Varina Davis, the Confederacy's First Lady. Think about what this means. Mary has access to the Confederate president's home. She serves meals when Davis meets with his generals. She cleans his office. She's in the room when they discuss strategy troop movements, supply lines. And the Confederates never suspect her because they think she's illiterate. They talk freely in front of her because they assume she's too stupid to understand. They're wrong on both counts. Mary can read perfectly, and she has a photographic memory. She memorizes everything: battle plans, troop numbers, supply shortages, political debates. Then she passes information to Union spy handlers through an underground network. Her intelligence is so valuable that some historians believe she shortened the war by months. When Richmond falls in April 1865, Mary disappears. She assumes a new identity and lives in hiding for the rest of her life. She knows if Confederates discover who she was, they'll hunt her down and kill her. For over a century, Mary Elizabeth Bowser is almost completely forgotten. No confirmed photographs of her exist. Her work is so secret that even Union records barely mention her. She's not inducted into the Military Intelligence Hall of Fame until 1995. 130 years after the war ends. Even now, most Americans have never heard of her. Meanwhile, Confederate women spies who got caught and failed are more famous than Mary Bowser, who succeeded brilliantly for years. One more example: William Harvey Carney, Battle of Fort Wagner, South Carolina, July 18, 1863. William is a sergeant in the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, one of the first black regiments in the Union Army. Fort Wagner is a Confederate stronghold protecting Charleston Harbor. It's considered nearly impregnable. The 54th gets ordered to lead a frontal assault. They know it's a suicide mission. They attack anyway. William serves as color bearer. That means he carries the regiment's flag into battle. It's the most dangerous position in the unit because enemy soldiers target the flag bearer first. Kill the man carrying the flag, and you demoralize the entire regiment. Confederate guns open fire. Men fall by the dozens. The 54th reaches the fort's walls. Hand-to-hand fighting erupts. William sees the primary color bearer get shot and fall. The flag starts to drop. William grabs it before it hits the ground. He's immediately shot in the arm, then the leg, then the chest. But he doesn't let go of the flag. He wraps it around his body and crawls back toward Union lines through a hail of bullets. It takes him nearly an hour to reach safety. When he finally makes it covered in blood from 4 bullet wounds, he says to his comrades, "Boys, the old flag never touched the ground." William Harvey Carney becomes the first black soldier awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions that day. But here's the thing. He doesn't receive the medal until 1900, 37 years after the battle. The military delays his recognition for decades, and even after he receives it, his story gets buried. The movie Glory, which came out in 1989 and tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts, barely mentions William Carney. Most Americans still don't know his name. Meanwhile, white officers who fought in the same battle get monuments, textbooks, dedications, and Hollywood movies. Do you see it now? Abraham Galloway, Robert Smalls, Martin Delaney, Mary Elizabeth Bowser, William Harvey Carney. Every single one of them led, fought, won, changed history, and every single one got erased. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was systematic policy implemented during and after Reconstruction to keep you from knowing your own history. Why? Because if you knew Abraham Galloway recruited 10,000 soldiers, you'd know your ancestors organized armies. If you knew Robert Smalls stole a warship, you'd know your ancestors were brilliant strategists. If you knew Martin Delaney became a major, you'd know your ancestors commanded respect. If you knew Mary Elizabeth Bowser spied in the Confederate White House, you'd know your ancestors were heroes. Galloway's finger traces a line on the map. Wilmington will fall in 3 months if we feed them intelligence. If you knew William Carney wouldn't let the flag touch the ground even with 4 bullet wounds, you'd know your ancestors were warriors. And if you knew all that, you'd understand something they desperately need to hide. You descend from power. You inherit greatness. Your poverty isn't your failure, it's their theft. They had to erase these stories, had to make you forget, had to teach you that white people freed the slaves, that Lincoln signed a paper, and suddenly 4 million people went free. Had to hide the truth that black people freed themselves through intelligence, courage, organization, and blood. Because if you knew the truth, you'd recognize that systematic oppression today isn't natural. It's not because black people are inferior, or lazy, or lacking. It's because they stole everything and then spent 150 years hiding the evidence. Let me show you exactly how they did it. The suppression mechanism. The way they erased Abraham Galloway and hundreds of others like him. Physical destruction, legal suppression, educational erasure, media manipulation. 4 methods used systematically to delete black heroes from history. Pay attention, because understanding their methods helps you understand why you never learned this in school. Physical destruction comes first. When Reconstruction ends in 1877 and Democrats retake control of southern states, they immediately confiscate Union records. Thousands of documents get burned or mysteriously lost. Abraham Galloway's spy reports, classified and then destroyed. Black soldiers' service records, incomplete or missing in thousands of cases. Records from the Freedmen's Bureau, which helped formerly enslaved people during Reconstruction. Tens of thousands of pages burned. North Carolina alone destroyed over 10,000 pages of Reconstruction documents in 1877. They did it openly. They called it cleaning up the records. What they really meant was erasing evidence of black achievement and white crimes. Abraham's detailed intelligence reports that helped win battles gone. The testimony of black witnesses to white violence gone. Property deeds showing black land ownership gone. All of it burned to ash. But documents aren't the only thing they destroyed. They demolished buildings. The African Brigade barracks where Abraham's recruits trained torn down immediately after the war. The safe houses his spy network used, demolished and replaced with white-owned businesses. The churches where Abraham gave recruiting speeches burned in Klan raids between 1868 and 1870. Take New Bern African Church, where Abraham delivered some of his most powerful speeches. 1869. Just a year before Abraham's death, The church burns to the ground. Witnesses see white men with torches. Everyone knows it's arson. No one is arrested. No one is prosecuted. The message is clear. We will destroy any place that celebrates black power. And they did. All across the South, churches, schools, meeting halls where black leaders organized, got burned, bombed, or torn down. And they killed witnesses. People who could testify to Abraham's achievements. Other black spies who worked in his network. At least 47 documented murders of black intelligence operatives between 1865 and 1877. Freedmen's Bureau agents trying to protect black rights. 19 assassinated in North Carolina alone. Black politicians 63 killed across southern states during Reconstruction. The message was simple. Talk about what we did, and you die. Abraham himself probably died this way. That suspicious yellow fever diagnosis. No epidemic. No other cases. Just Abraham at the height of his power, suddenly dead at 33. Arsenic poisoning looks a lot like yellow fever. Quick death, high fever, vomiting, extreme pain. The Klan used poison frequently because it looked natural. They could murder a black leader and face no consequences. Abraham threatened white supremacy more than almost anyone. He organized politically. He armed black communities. He refused to back down. They had every reason to kill him. And convenient that he dies right when redemption begins, right when Democrats start retaking Southern legislatures. But physical destruction is only the first method. Legal suppression comes next. They passed laws specifically designed to erase black political power and rewrite history. The Black Codes come first, 1865 to 1866. These laws criminalized black leadership, made it illegal for black people to gather without white supervision, prevented black testimony against whites in court. North Carolina's Black Code Article 4 explicitly stated, "No Negro shall hold political office." Think about what that means. Abraham Galloway's election to the state Senate was technically illegal under state law. He could only serve because federal military occupation enforced his rights. The moment Union troops withdrew those laws, snapped back into effect. Black legislators got expelled. Black voters got purged from rolls. Everything Abraham built gone in 5 years. Then came redemption laws in the 1870s. After federal troops left the southern states, passed new laws to complete the erasure. They removed black voters through literacy tests, poll taxes, grandfather clauses. They disbanded black militias that leaders like Abraham had organized for self-defense. They gerrymandered black districts out of existence. North Carolina's 1875 Constitution effectively banned black political participation. Everything Abraham built, gone in 5 years. Educational erasure builds on those legal foundations. The school system becomes a weapon to destroy cultural memory. From 1900 to 1970, Southern textbooks taught outright lies. A school history of North Carolina, published in 1908, dedicates 400 pages to state history. Black soldiers in the Civil War get mentioned exactly once in a single sentence. He assigns each man a mission. Thomas, you sabotage the rail line at Kinston. Samuel, you count Confederate troops at Fort Fisher. Abraham Galloway, not mentioned. Robert Smalls, not mentioned. The thousands of black North Carolinians who fought for freedom, erased. North Carolina, the Old North State, published in 1939, includes a detailed Civil War chapter. Black contributions are described as negligible. The Story of North Carolina, published in 1956, goes even further. It teaches that black people during Reconstruction were incompetent and corrupt. That white Democrats saved the state from Negro rule. That the Klan were heroes protecting civilization. This is what your grandparents were taught in school. This is what shaped their understanding of history. Teacher training reinforced these lies. Normal schools which trained teachers, including black teachers, were forbidden from teaching controversial history. State boards of education approved every lesson plan. Teachers who deviated from the approved narrative got fired and blacklisted. Mary McLeod Bethune, the famous black educator, tried to teach accurate black history in her school. The state defunded her. She had to rely on private donations to keep operating. Think about the generational impact. From 1870 to 1974, entire generations of black children were taught they contributed nothing to their own freedom. 4 generations told that white people freed the slaves, that black people were passive recipients of white benevolence, that their ancestors were helpless victims who needed saving. The result, cultural memory, erased. Even black families who knew the truth were afraid to speak it. Speaking truth about black achievement or white violence could get you killed. So the stories died with the grandparents who lived them. By 1970, even most black communities didn't know Abraham Galloway's name. Things only began changing in the 2000s. North Carolina finally started teaching more accurate Civil War history in 2006. Abraham Galloway was mentioned in the state curriculum for the first time. But even now, most students graduate never hearing his name. Compare that to Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, Stonewall Jackson, Confederate generals who committed treason and lost the war. Every student learns those names, their required knowledge. But Abraham Galloway, who helped win the war and served in government optional at best. Media manipulation completes the erasure. Newspapers, books, films, and popular culture created a false narrative that still dominates today. During Reconstruction, white newspapers called Abraham a Negro agitator. They described his speeches as inflammatory and dangerous. His organizing work, Negro rule and tyranny. The Wilmington Daily Journal in 1868 wrote Galloway seeks to arm Negroes against whites as if self-defense was a crime. When Abraham died in 1870, the Raleigh Sentinel wrote, "Death of troublesome Negro, good riddance." This newspaper propaganda shaped public opinion. White readers learned to see black political leaders as threats. Black readers learned it was dangerous to support those leaders. The message was clear. Black people who demand equality are troublemakers. Black people who organize are dangerous. Black people who fight back are criminals. This narrative justified violence. If Abraham Galloway was a troublemaker, then his murder was acceptable. If black politicians were corrupt, then removing them was necessary. Newspapers manufactured consent for white terrorism. Then comes lost cause mythology. From the 1890s through the 1960s, books, films, and magazines promoted a romanticized version of the Confederacy. They portrayed Confederates as noble heroes fighting for states' rights. They portrayed slavery as benign, even beneficial. They portrayed enslaved people as happy and loyal. They portrayed Reconstruction as a disaster caused by incompetent black politicians and vindictive Northern radicals. This mythology infected American culture so deeply, we're still fighting it today. The most influential piece of lost cause propaganda was Birth of a Nation, released in 1915. This film portrayed black people as savage and dangerous. It showed the Ku Klux Klan as heroes saving white civilization from black barbarism. The film was historically inaccurate propaganda, pure white supremacist fantasy, but it became the most influential film in American history. President Woodrow Wilson screened it at the White House and praised it. The Supreme Court justices saw it. It played in theaters nationwide. It shaped how millions of Americans understood the Civil War and Reconstruction. Birth of a Nation directly led to the Klan's resurgence in the 1920s. Klan membership exploded to 4 million. They lynched, burned, and terrorized with impunity. And they did it believing they were heroes, because that's what the culture taught them. The film's director, D.W. Griffith, created a lie so powerful it justified decades of murder. And nowhere in that 3-hour film does the truth appear. No mention of black spies, black soldiers, black politicians who served honorably. Just racist caricatures designed to justify oppression. This pattern continued through the 20th century. Gone with the Wind in 1939 romanticized plantation slavery. The movie presented enslaved people as content servants who loved their masters. Reconstruction appears as a nightmare of black corruption, ended by heroic white Southerners. 4 hours of lies disguised as epic romance. It won Academy Awards. It played in theaters for decades. Multiple generations absorbed its propaganda. Even films that tried to tell black stories often centered white saviors. Glory, released in 1989, finally told the story of the 54th Massachusetts. But the film focuses on the white Colonel Robert Gould Shaw. The black soldiers, including Medal of Honor recipient William Carney, become supporting characters in their own story. Lincoln, released in 2012, is even worse.